Hi, this is Ryan, and I need to stop you before you take those new $300 Sony flagships to the squat rack. Because if you look really closely at the copper charging pins inside the case of your last dead year-old workout buds, you're probably going to see this crusty greenish black oxidation. Everyone assumes they just sweat their earbuds to death or dropped them too many times. But what's actually happening is a microscopic chemical reaction, galvanic corrosion, that literally eats the charging contacts overnight while you sleep. Sony's been coasting. They've been trying to convince us that their premium lifestyle buds, the ones with those sleek, frictionless shells that slide right out of your ear the second you lay back on a bench, can double as gym gear. They can't. And over the last few months, 3 hyper-specialized workout earbuds have quietly hit the market and absolutely dismantled Sony's do-it-all narrative. So what is the specific waterproof lie that audio brands are legally allowed to print on the side of the box? And which of these 3 new options actually survives the salt? Let's get into it. And hey, if this saves you from bricking a pair of expensive headphones this year, consider hitting subscribe. I have the Sony WF-1000XM5s right here on my desk. If you just roll one around in your hand, it feels like a little heavy obsidian pebble. Premium, smooth. Sitting here in my studio under the softbox lights, they look and feel exactly like a $300 piece of audio engineering should look. But wrap your hands around a knurled barbell for 20 minutes, get a little chalk on your fingers, work up some sweat, and then try to double top the right earbud to skip a song. Nothing happens. Or worse, the sweat pools on the capacitive surface, the earbud thinks you're long pressing it, and it wildly cycles through ANC and transparency modes while you're mid-rep. It's maddening. I actually found myself wiping my hands on my shorts, then wiping the earbud just to attempt to pause a podcast. You're paying a premium price for daily friction. And that's the fundamental disconnect happening right now. Brands like Sony are treating the gym as a software problem to be solved with better noise cancellation algorithms or smarter spatial audio processing. But the gym isn't a software problem, it's a mechanical one. It's a chemistry problem. Let's talk about that chemistry. If you look at the spec sheet for almost any high-end lifestyle earbud today, you'll see an IPX4 water resistance rating. Some even boast IPX7, which sounds great on paper. Throw it in a pool, run in the rain. I thought that was enough for years. I just assumed if it survives a rainstorm, it survives a treadmill. Okay, let me back up for a second because that's the exact trap the marketing departments want us in. IP testing, the actual laboratory certification process, uses purified room temperature fresh water. You know what's not purified fresh water? Sweat. Sweat is a highly conductive, corrosive cocktail of water, sodium, chloride, potassium, and urea. When you finish a heavy cardio session, pull out a damp earbud and drop it straight into its charging case, you are essentially creating a tiny, dark, humid terrarium. The charging pins on the bud touch the copper contacts inside the case. A tiny electrical current starts flowing to charge the lithium-ion battery, and that current passes right through the microscopic layer of salty sweat you left behind. That triggers electrolysis. The metal literally oxidizes and pits away. 6 months later, your left earbud just mysteriously stops charging. You probably assume you got a dud battery or the firmware glitched. Nope, you dissolved the bridge. The general public is finally starting to realize that replacing high-end, smooth plastic earbuds every 14 months is a terrible, expensive tax just to listen to music while moving. And 3 very different companies realized that if they just stopped trying to make an earbud for the office, the subway, and the gym, they could engineer something that actually survives the reality of a workout. We're looking at the Beats Powerbeats Pro 2, the Jabra Elite 8 Active, and the Bose Ultra Open. I've spent the last 6 weeks rotating through these 3. I've run in the rain, I've lifted, I've tossed them into damp gym bags without their cases, and just generally disrespected them to see where the physical breaking points actually are. I was sure going into this, one of these would emerge as the obvious, universally perfect gym bud, and I was half wrong. There isn't one clean winner. Instead, what I found was that each of these 3 models isolates a specific fatal physical flaw in the traditional earbud design and completely over-engineers a solution for it. Take the Jabras, for example. When you first unbox them, they don't have that slick, glassy finish of a Sony or an AirPod. They feel almost sticky. It's a liquid silicone rubber coating. It's honestly a little weird at first touch, but when your ear canal gets damp, that silicone expands slightly and grips the skin like tire tread on warm asphalt. It's a completely different engineering philosophy than just shoving a rigid plastic oval deeper into your ear and hoping gravity doesn't win. By completely abandoning the idea of being a lifestyle earbud, these three have made the traditional premium market look completely obsolete for anyone who actually trains. But finding out which of these distinct approaches actually works requires looking at where they completely fall flat. Here's the part of the testing process where I actually started getting annoyed. Because when you look at how these three companies solved the gym problem, they didn't just tweak the EQ or add a new rubber tip, they went to extremes. And in doing so, they created entirely new, incredibly frustrating problems that nobody warns you about. Let's start with that Jabra liquid silicone coating I mentioned. I wanted to see exactly what shake grip actually meant. I took the Elite 8 Actives, got them completely soaked under a faucet, shoved them in my ears, and literally tried to flick my head hard enough to dislodge them. I looked like an absolute idiot standing in my garage aggressively shaking my head, but they didn't budge. They just lock in. They're IP68 rated, which means they are completely dust tight and can survive continuous submersion. I accidentally kicked the left bud across the driveway concrete, scuffed the outer rubber shell a bit, but it played perfectly. Structurally, they're little tanks. But, and this is the massive, glaring red flag that tech reviewers are glossing over right now, Jabra is killing their consumer earbud division. They announced it. They're winding it down. They're out. So if you drop $200 on these today, what happens when iOS 19 or Android 16 drops next year? The companion app breaks, the multi-point Bluetooth switching starts getting buggy. You are buying exceptional, durable hardware that will outlast its own software support by years. It feels like buying a top-tier sports car from a manufacturer that just filed for bankruptcy. The engine is great, but good luck getting the computer serviced in 2027. Then you have the Bose Ultra Open earbuds. I'm going to be completely honest here. When I first saw the press renders for these, I laughed out loud. They clip onto the outer edge of your ear cartilage like a piece of weird cyber jewelry. I thought it was purely a fashion play. I was so wrong. I wore them on a 3-mile run last Tuesday in 15-mile-an-hour wind. Normally, wind shear hitting the external microphones on a pair of Sony XM5s or AirPods creates this deafening, static-like roar right in your ear canal. With the Bose, nothing. Because your ear canal is entirely unblocked. You just hear the natural wind while the audio is beamed directly downward into your ear. You can hear traffic, approaching bikes, a dog barking across the street. For outdoor cardio, it is a revelation. Okay, let me back up because that sounds like a glowing endorsement. Take those exact same $300 Bose into a commercial gym and they instantly become a massive liability. Last Thursday, I was deadlifting, wearing the Bose, trying to listen to an audiobook. The gym's overhead PA system was blasting some generic, heavily distorted 2014 EDM remix. Because you have zero passive isolation, no silicone tip blocking the canal, that gym music bleeds straight into your head and clashes violently with your own audio. You end up aggressively cranking the Bose volume to 90% just to drown out the room. At that point, the tiny drivers start getting shrill, battery life tanks, and the guy on the bench next to you can clearly hear your audiobook leaking out. They are outdoor specialists that absolutely fail the indoor test. Which brings me to the Beats Powerbeats Pro 2. If you are an absolute savage in the gym, these are mechanically the best earbuds on earth. The behind-the-ear elastomer hook physically prevents gravity from winning. You can do plyometric box jumps until your lungs burn, and they will not move a millimeter. And thank God, Apple actually gave them physical micro switch buttons. You press them and they click with a definitive tactile snap. I had chalk and sweat all over my hands, reached up, clicked the volume rocker, and it just worked. No swiping, no hoping a capacitive sensor registers my damp thumb. Actually, wait. I need to talk about the case because it fundamentally ruins the daily experience of owning them. To accommodate those giant ear hooks, Apple had to house them in a charging case the size of a literal bar of soap. I'm not exaggerating. I dropped the case into the pocket of my standard Lululemon gym shorts and it dragged the left side of my shorts down by 1.5 inches. It looks ridiculous. It heavily slaps against your thigh when you walk. You physically cannot carry this case around the gym floor with you. You have to leave it in your locker or your car, which means if the buds die mid-workout or you just want to take them off to talk to someone for 10 minutes, you have nowhere safe to put them. You're just holding these two loose, sweaty plastic hooks in your hand while trying to carry your water bottle and your phone. Every single one of these companies fixed Sony's core problem, but introduced a fatal flaw of their own. Physics and corporate strategy simply won't allow a perfect device to exist. You're probably sitting there right now thinking, okay, great, every option is fundamentally compromised. And yeah, I felt exactly the same way last Friday when I had all 4 of these cases spread out on my kitchen island trying to figure out which one I was actually going to keep in my gym bag. I keep saying compromise, but what I really mean is prioritization. You have to pick the specific type of friction you're willing to live with because the do-everything earbud that Sony is trying to sell you simply does not exist. So let's talk about where my money is actually going. If it were my $249 and my primary goal was lifting weights in a commercial gym or doing high-intensity interval training, I am buying the Beats Powerbeats Pro 2, period. At first, I thought the charging case was so obnoxiously large that it was an absolute deal breaker. Then I used them for a week and, okay, it's complicated, but the trade-off is actually worth it. When you are 60 minutes deep in a heavy leg day, your hands are shaking and you just want to pause your music. The tactile, physical click of that volume rocker is a massive relief. You don't have to think about it. You just squeeze the plastic housing and it snaps. That mechanical certainty, combined with an ear hook that absolutely refuses to shift regardless of your head angle, trumps the inconvenience of leaving the giant plastic soap bar case in your locker. It's the ultimate specialized tool for a very specific job. If you were strictly a runner or a cyclist, avoid the Beats. Avoid the Sonys. Get the Bose Ultra Open. I haven't tested the long-term tension fatigue of that flexible silicone barrel hinge yet, so grain of salt on how it feels in year 3. But right now, it is a revelation for outdoor cardio. You get the spatial awareness of bone-conducting headphones with acoustic fidelity that actually sounds like music, not just muffled vibrations. And then there's the Jabra Elite 8 Active. This one actually hurts. The grippy liquid silicone texture is exactly what every other audio manufacturer should be legally required to copy for their gym models. I genuinely expected these to feel cheap when I first unboxed them, and I was entirely surprised by how rugged and dense the chassis feels. It absorbs shock like a high-end power tool. But I cannot in good conscience tell you to spend $200 on hardware when the manufacturer is openly abandoning the software ecosystem. It's like buying a brand new router from a company that's going out of business tomorrow. You're just pre-purchasing e-waste. Which brings me back to the Sony XM5s and the AirPods Pro and every other premium, shiny lifestyle earbud you might be tempted to take on a run. If you're gonna ignore everything I just said and use your daily driver premium buds at the gym anyway, you have to change your post-workout behavior because the moisture rating on the box is a marketing fantasy. Next time you finish a workout, do not just yank the earbuds out and immediately drop them back into the magnetic charging case. That is exactly how you trigger the galvanic corrosion that eats the copper contacts. Take a dry corner of your shirt or a microfiber towel and physically wipe the moisture off the tiny metal charging pins on the bud. Let them air dry on your passenger seat for 5 minutes on the drive home before you put them back in the case to charge. It sounds obsessive, but eliminating that trapped salty micro-moisture is the single biggest difference between an earbud that randomly dies after 11 months and one that survives for 3 years. You don't need a firmware update. You don't need smarter AI noise cancellation. You just need to respect the chemistry of human sweat and buy a product built for the actual physics of a workout. All right, I need to go pack up these Jabras to ship back. If this saved you from melting the charging pins on your next pair of headphones or just helped you rethink your gym carry, drop a comment below and let me know what you're currently using. I read all of them. See you in the next one.